Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our inspirational interview series. It's been a little while since we've had an interviewee here. I've mostly been doing Tuesday talks with Hannah, learning all about Ayurveda. And so I'm really excited to welcome Carmen on today. And I'm going to introduce her via her bio. But Carmen and I met in Mexico, I think. I'll have to check in with her. Mexico. Yes, I'm seeing her nod. And she also was trained as a yoga health coach. And she now specializes in working with teachers. And she's become quite an expert on working with migraines and headaches. And so I wanted to bring her on today. You are welcome to comment if you're watching on Facebook. Let us know that you're here. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to contribute your questions. And Carmen's also in our group, so she can see if you ask questions after the fact as well. So Carmen Marie is a Canadian. She's coming to us from Canada. And so her mission is to help teachers and educators fuel their minds, body, and spirit so they can live life unapologetically, both in and out of the classroom. Carmen has spent the last 20 years learning to shift her own life priorities to alignment with the gifts she has to offer others. No longer in a classroom setting, she has leaned into mentoring and supporting others on their own healing journey. Carmen is here to help teachers and educators, which we all are, even if we're not in a classroom, create the habits that will take them from overwhelmed to energized and truly happy. Experienced in speaking, Carmen Murray brings authenticity and an interactive experience in her workshops and talks. She is passionate about guiding others to rekindle their life balance. So she's right on par with everything that we do here. So without further ado, let me welcome Carmen. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Hannah, for that great introduction.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you here, and it's great to get to talk with you again. So give us a little bit more information about who you are, a little bit of your background.
So a little bit of my background, I'm like, oh, what should I tell them about? So I used to teach school, and I absolutely loved it. And I stepped away 4 years ago because it no longer aligned. And my body really let me know that it no longer aligned. It just took me a while to listen to it. I live in Canada, like Hannah said, in Alberta. I live on a ranch with my husband. I've got two amazing children, a 16-year-old who's in grade 12 and a 10-year-old who's in grade 6. And they are amazing at teaching me life lessons and inspiring me to share myself with the world so that I can set a great example for them. I'm also a yoga instructor. I started teaching yoga again live just a couple of weeks ago, so super excited about that. And I specifically help teachers with similar habits to what Hannah teaches. And I also run another group that's non-teachers. So I'm a little bit all over the place. And I'm writing a book. So I've published my own book on my website, which we're going to talk about today. And then I'm in the process of writing another book for teachers. I think that's all. And I think we lost Hannah. Oh, she's back.
So sorry. I meant to unmute myself, and instead I just removed myself. There's a lawnmower going outside my office. I don't know if you can hear it, but I just felt like I should mute when I'm not talking. So
no, can't hear it at all.
Oh, okay, good, excellent. So this topic of headaches and migraines, tell us a little bit about what has your journey been with headaches and migraines?
Well, my journey actually started really young. I first got migraines when I was 13. Like the first one I experienced was in my classroom, and it was like the blotches in my vision showed up. I couldn't see on my right side, and it freaked me out a lot because I had no idea what was going on. And so my information and wisdom from headaches comes from my own experience from 13, and now I'm 46. So I feel like I've navigated a lot with them. So I first got them from extra chemicals in my body, MSG being one of them. that I couldn't have as a teenager, which really sucked because that took out all the junk food. And then hairspray. I also got them. Like it was like a 24-hour trigger. I'd use hairspray, and then within 24 hours, I would have a migraine.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So
chemical triggers.
And I spent, so my mom figured that out for me. And then I spent a lot of time taking Tylenol and ibuprofen and things like that until they got to a point where like they didn't make a difference.
Mm.
And now I can't stand taking them. So through actually the Ayurveda stuff that I've learned, I really get things like hydration is super important. And actually my son gets them when he's not hydrated. So that's his current trigger as a young man. And in uncovering my own stuff in my own journey of life and the places I've hidden and I don't really want to show up in life, in uncovering that, it's really helped me dive into my migraines and that they're actually messages for me and information for me when I'm out of alignment or I'm not breathing and being open or when I'm just like letting go of old belief systems. So there's the part that's like the physical level of understanding our bodies, which I know, Hannah, you teach in the habits. And then there's this part of the, I don't know if we want to call it the etherical plane, you might have a better word for it, but really understanding the energy that we bring to the world and what we're meant to do in this world. And when we don't show up and do the things we're meant to do, our body lets us know. And migraines are one of the ways that still shows up for me every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about it as like the check engine lights, right? Like our bodies are always talking to us. They're either saying everything's great and things are going well, or, hey, something's out of whack and it needs attention, or something that you've done is not going over well in this system. And we need to tune in. So yeah, and Dharma is a big part of it. If we're not in alignment with what we're here to do, then we start feeling bad in different ways. And it is like from the Ayurvedic perspective, we would call it a kavagunya. It's like where the weak points are. For some people, it will be headaches. For some people, it will be stomach aches. It will be joint pains. It'll be not necessarily pain, but maybe brain fog or sleep issues, or right. It can show up in lots of different ways. But it's all of the check engine lights telling us we're out of alignment, right? So I'm curious if you can, for people who haven't ever had a migraine. You mentioned like visual things. Can you explain a little bit more about the experience of having a migraine?
Absolutely. So for me, usually, and they show up different now than they used to, quite a bit different actually. So when I was younger, I would get them. It would be like, when I look at something, it would be like there'd be spots missing. And so that's kind of like the visual of, oh, something's going on.
Is that called an ocular migraine?
You know what? I don't know. That's a really great question. And so that would show up first. And then it's interesting because it's like, and then the panic would set in of, oh, I'm getting a migraine. Like then there's that stress level that would up it even more, which I think I have less now. So it changes my experience. And then I wouldn't be able to see on my right side. So I lose my peripheral vision. And then sometimes I would lose it on my left side. And it's interesting because as I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling the yuckiness of it, but it's okay. It's all good. And then
cancel clear. It doesn't need to come in right now.
Right. Totally. And then I get like numbness and tingling in different parts of my body, like in my hands, some places in my face, sometimes in my like tongue and my lips. And so there's those kind of body sensations that go on. And then after that, kind of like the pain level settles in. This is like the pain of my head really hurting. And usually right here is where I get it. Of late, it's been behind in my sinuses. So, and then there's this like pain, excruciating pain. And in the past, one of the things I would do is just like go to a dark room, find a quiet space, curl up in a ball, and try and sleep it off. What I'm really noticing now is that if I can really start to breathe and be present in my body as these symptoms are coming through, they're less intense. There's
Mm.
less pain. And if I'm being more expansive as opposed to contracted, I feel better. It doesn't take over my life and I hide in a dark room for 2 days.
Mm.
Like I can breathe through the pain, I can be with it. And that in itself helps it clear. I also have a really good friend who I talk to, and she helps me move the energetic stuff through it so that whatever blockage is being worked on moves through quicker.
Mm. Yeah. So that's really helpful. The multifaceted. Yeah. So healing migraines. So it sounds like you still get them, but you have more tools to work with them.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk more about what that journey has been for you?
So as a young person, I feel like the foods were trigger. I don't think I was hydrated enough as a young person. When I look back now, sometimes some days now I'm not even hydrated enough. And it's just like paying attention to my body in my lips get dry, my hands start to get dry. Those are signs that I'm dehydrated. So I need to drink more water. As I went to college, that was kind of when I began to realize that there was a stress trigger too. It wasn't just food and the hairspray, because I hadn't used them for years. I remember before a math exam in university, I had a migraine. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I need to function and think and write a test. But so there became a stress factor that showed up in my body. And that was what my migraines showed up from, because I was pushing too much or didn't have enough sleep or wasn't really paying attention to those check engine lights, as you call them. And so as a young adult, that was kind of my exploration of them. Okay, I need to be de-stressed, things like massages. I love self-massage in our habits. It's just like that is so helpful. And then when I started doing my own personal development work, there was an uncovering of, do I really love myself? Am I able to have that compassion and that self-love? And so in that kind of unpacking of that journey for myself, I had more migraines show up because I was, I'm going to say, letting go of that belief of that I didn't love myself, or I wasn't good enough to be loved, or whatever those beliefs were about how much I loved myself. And that was a pivotal point for me to, the more I accept myself, the more I show up in my Dharma, even though I didn't know that that's what it was called then, the less stressed I am and the more easeful I can be in life. So, and now I get them. I feel like I get them when I'm moving through energetic shifts and blocks. And it's like from that yoga perspective, that samskara, it's like it's burning off and being released from my body. And it would be really nice if it wasn't migraines that did that for me, but that seems to be what it is. And now that I recognize it and go, oh, this is all that's going on, it's not as daunting. It's not as scary, and it doesn't take over.
Yeah. So it's not just like happening to you. It's like happening for you. It's like, oh, there's a process here. I can show up to the process. It's interesting. I have a client right now who has pretty bad migraines, and I am seeing it like as there are invitations towards this deeper work. It's definitely triggering, and like, oh, that's so interesting that when this like deeper emotional work comes up, it's like migraine. And yeah, so will you talk about, so you've written an ebook, and then you're in the process of writing a published book about migraines, headaches.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. Like I've talked about kind of like, we've talked about Dharma and our journeys and different things like that. And one of the things that came up for me about 9 months ago, I guess, I think what month we're in was, it's like, oh, you're supposed to write books. And I'm like, but I've never written a book. I've been a school teacher. English wasn't my favorite thing to teach, things like that. And so I started writing a book for teachers, and I did a brain dump on that, and that was great. And then what I'm really learning about my own Dharma is my experiences are meant to inspire others to create their own healing journey. and to really understand that you can heal yourself. You don't have to go to a doctor, get a magic pill that really isn't magic and might not work. It's just like, as we unpack and really get to know our bodies and the check engine lights and what they mean, we heal ourselves. And so when I finished that one thing, I was like, oh, I think I should write about migraines. And I'm like, oh, because I have this life experience of it, plus the like intentional healing I've done in the last 20 years. So I've written this book called Life Beyond Headaches and Migraines, and it shares my wisdom and my story about my migraines and what I would do differently based on the last 20 years of my own experience of healing myself.
Can you share some of that with us? What would you do differently?
So I already mentioned a couple of them. So hydration is huge. Hydration is huge. Because I feel like when we hydrate, our body is actually able to eliminate the junk, I call it, whether it be our beliefs, things that show up on our physical body, our experiences. The more we can digest things, then we don't store them in our body. And I feel like when we're hydrated, that really helps us to make that process more easeful. So that's one of them. The food we eat. It's just like there is so much junk in the food we eat. So it's like, how can we fuel ourselves with intention so that we are running ourselves like an optimal premium sports car? It's one of the references I make. It's just like, if I want my body to be an optimum premium sports car, I better feed it the optimum premium gas.
That's a good shout out for detoxing too. Seasonal detox. Get a clean burning, wonderful fueled machine.
Yes, totally. Because, well, and it's like, we are here for the human experience. And so we have our upbringing, our childhood, and like all of the things that go with that. And then depending on our age, all of the rest of our life experiences, which create the junk and the gunk that gets in our systems, that the detox is so powerful for. Whether we like dive full into the detox, or we just like step away from screens, or make it really fit with what we want to shift, is so, so powerful. And I absolutely love your reference to that, because we're about that season, right? I'm like, I can't wait. In fact, I'm already starting to organically do it and shift because it's the season. And so things like that are tools that we use on a regular basis, that we revisit, that just help us be more present. And I would say be more aligned with our dharma and our dreams. It's like, what do we want? What's in the way? Let's get rid of it. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember, because I didn't review my book before I came and talked to you. That would have been a good idea. But I'm like, the people that I hang out with are so, so important. Because I hang out with 3 ladies on a regular basis, and they're my really good friends now, but we started out as a healing group. And I've been hanging out with these ladies for 7 or 8 years, twice a month in person, doing healing stuff. And so it's like, I'm always unpacking. And so I feel like that's really important to have in your life, is a group of people that you can be real with. And maybe it's only one, and maybe it's someone you pay for, right? That's the other thing, is sometimes it's really great to actually, not sometimes, often it's great to invest in yourself so that you can feel better. And so using those people around you who believe in you, they lift you up, they remind you of how amazing you are and your possibility, is so, so huge in the mindset.
Awesome. Yes. So true. So true. Are there things that you find like using? Well, like I use some herb stuff with folks who have headaches, like Brahmi ghee and asnasia. Is that something you've?
So that's something that I've never experienced. Okay. But I do, like, essential oils make a difference for me. Mm-hmm. And so I use essential oils, and it's really interesting because I use them daily. Like, I use them on a daily basis, and that is super helpful. And it depends if I have like a stress headache, mm-hmm. things like peppermint on the back of my neck and across my forehead and maybe on my temples, not too close to your eyes because it's a hot oil, are helpful. But if it's when I'm like letting go of energy and shifting things and burning off samskara, they make it worse. It's like you need to drop into this experience. You need to kind of like really experience it and deal with it, as opposed to, I don't want to say a quick fix, but like, yeah, I definitely get two different kinds of migraines and headaches. If it's a headache, I can usually use essential oils and do some of the physical stuff and have it go away. But lately, if it's a migraine, I'm really moving through samskara, getting closer along, more aligned, not closer, along my dharmic path is what I really notice. And I would say,
oh, go ahead.
I want to make reference back to being 13 because I remember being 13 and being, right, that's the age where we discover ourselves. We start to like come out of our shells. There's puberty that goes on. We step into being a woman, all of those things. That's when my headaches started. And I'm going to say that's when I shut down my abilities. So I think that's really important to acknowledge in our journey, right? I can remember knowing stuff. And in my human design chart, wisdom shows up 3 times. So I'm supposed to know things. But when you're 13 and you know things and you're like, why and how do I know this? It's a little scary. And what will people think and all of those things. So I totally shut down all my gifts at age 13 and started to, I would say, really show up in them at the age 30.
So would you say okay, 2 questions. So you don't use any essential oils when it's a dharma headache?
Makes it
None
work.
of them, not just peppermint, but no essential oils.
It's okay. Like I can look at my case and go like it's a hard no.
Okay.
Don't even go there.
Okay. So that's really interesting. And then when you look at that piece of like you can see clearly, and this is really cool because we've been doing a lot of work with like ancestral healing, like Tarpana in this community, and things with just seeing kind of patterns play out in lineage too. And then we can see the patterns in our own lives.
That's cool.
Of like when in retrospect, you can look back and be like, oh, when did this start? And how has this played out? So in cultivating that reconnection, would you say like the migraine part of it feels like some sort of blockage or like armor or something that has been put on the truth of who you are? Like, how would you describe that? I'm just trying to think for people who are having migraines, and maybe this concept of like what I'm calling a dharma headache would be like, how might you articulate what that feels like?
That's a really good question. So for me, I feel like the headaches, when I started getting them when I was 13, was not wanting to look at that part of myself, not wanting to own that wisdom that I had, and then allowing the fear of what other people would think be layered within that. And so I would totally say, yes, the migraines are resistance, because I had one. Actually, I had one when I showed up on a guest call last week where I was talking about this book, as well as some other stuff, as well as the human design stuff. And so it was like, oh yeah, okay. And it's like, I've got a migraine. Okay, we'll just keep going, taking action steps slowly throughout my day, doing what I needed to do, just allowed me to continue to move through and take my action steps, as opposed to shutting it all down. So I would totally say there's definitely an element in there, and fear seems to be a big thing for me because then it's weaved into things. And then my girlfriend always calls me about, she's like, you're hiding. I'm like, oh yeah. And so it's like, I'm hiding, and I have been since I was 13, possibly even younger. And so the places where I'm really showing up and stepping out of hiding, sometimes my fear is like, what are you doing? Let's see if we can like get her to like curl back in and contract and hide again. And so if I show up as a headache, maybe that'll happen. And currently I'm not allowing that to shut me down. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. So it sounds like there might be some questions that people could ask, like what am I afraid of here? What am I hiding from? That might help articulate like, oh, this is really about me, like stepping into my truth versus like I ate something that I'm reacting to, or there's a chemical contaminant in my environment. And it might be a both and.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's both, because it's just like, I think sometimes
Mhm.
when we start to become unconscious and are a bit more avoiding of really stepping into it, we eat things that we know aren't the best for us, or we do things that we know aren't the
Mhm.
best for us. And then this physical stuff comes up.
Mhm.
And then there's that energetic component of, for me, it's like one of the things I do is, and I love how you talk about ancestral healing, is it's like, oh, what's going on here? Like if I can feel the migraine
Mhm.
here, I get really present and um, really feel what's going on. And often images will come.
Mm.
Often images, and like some of them are gruesome images. And I'm just like, okay, this is really weird that I feel like I've been stabbed.
Mm.
And then allowing that to be what it is, allowing it to unfold. And usually when I do things like that, it definitely takes the pressure off, which is where the pain comes from.
Mhm.
So it's like acknowledging these past ancestral experiences that were mine or not mine. And even into like past lives, if you're someone who believes in that, it's like there's all of this stuff stored in this body and in the energy that comes with this body that is trying to be released. So that's another thing I do is I'll just sit with my headache and go, oh, okay, this is where I feel the pain, and then just sit with it and see what arrives. And sometimes
Mhm.
nothing does. And sometimes stuff comes up that I'm just like, oh, this is a little odd, but we'll go with it.
Mhm.
And I always feel better. Like it's that like
Mhm.
allowing ourselves to feel the feelings of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm sure some folks that are watching will have some questions. If you're live right now, feel free to type a question in the chat. We're about to end, but yeah. So, what advice would you give to somebody struggling with migraines today?
To breathe.
Should we
To
all
just
do
like
that
really
right now?
allow yourself to slow down. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And take some breaths so that you can really start to go within and see what's going on.
Mm.
Because one of the things I've experienced and believe is that life is messy.
Mm.
Even though there's this perception that it should be all wonderful and rosy and all the things, it's so not. I'm really sure it's not in your house. I know it's not in my house. And all of the people that I work with, it's not in their house. So it's like accepting that life is messy and that the Facebook perspective is not the ideal.
Mhm.
And that we can just allow ourselves to be who we truly are.
That's so healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. And we'll post the link with this interview for your ebook. And is there anything else you'd like to direct people to?
You mentioned you'll post the link for my ebook. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And then find people, find your people. It's so, so important to have people. And maybe you're already in a group with Hannah or you hang out with Hannah in some way, shape, or form. Use the people that are in your group and that you feel safe with, and allow yourself to dive even deeper than you thought you should ever go or could ever go, because that's where the beauty in it all is.
Mm. Amen. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much,
you're
Carmen.
welcome.
It's great to be with you, and thanks for sharing your tips today. And we'll see what people post after they've watched later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me as a guest, Hannah. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
And yeah, reach out if you have questions. You can probably find me on Facebook if you want to like PM me personally. You're more than welcome to, or post under the video, and I will answer them to the best of my ability.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Have a great rest of
Thank
your
you.
day.
You too.